Thank you for tuning in. Our next presenter is Margot Berry, Vice President of BeWhere. Ms. Berry, you may begin.
Thank you, and good afternoon and Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for joining me as I will present you BeWhere. BeWhere is a publicly traded company on the Toronto Venture Exchange on the ticker BEW and on the OTCQB under BEW.FF. Essentially, BeWhere is an IoT company that builds solutions to track things, lots of things. And I wanted to start by saying that last year has been quite the year, and that despite being in the middle of a global pandemic and a worldwide economic turmoil, it's also been the first year that we've turned a positive net income with a record quarter in Q3. And we are very humbled by the success in such difficult times around the world. So now let's dive a bit more in the details on what we do. Let's talk about our business model and how we actually make money. As I said earlier, BeWhere is an Internet of Things company. That means that we build devices, self-powered devices that collect a number of data, such as sensor information, like temperature, and GPS location. Those devices use IoT networks that are owned by the telecom operators to relay the data to our cloud servers. These IoT networks are called LTE-M and NB-IoT, and they are dedicated to machine-to-machine communication, meaning they allow a very small amount of data to be transmitted at a much lower cost than traditional networks like 3G or 4G. These IoT networks are part of the 5G, but only on the low power side. Once the data is transmitted to our servers, it can be accessed by the end users using our platform, or it can be integrated into their own software. Our devices are slapped, literally slapped, on a variety of assets to remotely track location or remotely monitor sensor information, or to do both. We divide our products applications into two main segments. The first one is the asset tracking solution, which is an existing market, and where we disrupt this market by bringing a new solution to replace older solutions at a much lower cost and with longer battery life by using these IoT networks. The second segment is called the connected sensor solution, where usually we monitor sensor data within fixed locations, such as soil moisture. I'll give you some concrete examples in a few slides. We are a B2B company, meaning that our customers are going to be distributing our solutions to end users. Typically, we sell our asset tracking solution mostly to the private sector, Fortune 500 companies, small and medium enterprises, software companies, telecom operator. And the connected sensor solutions, we sell them to governments, municipalities, or cities. It does happen that a municipality will purchase an asset tracking solution from us, but that's how we like to simplify our revenue model. So we make money in two ways. First, we sell the hardware at a low cost, so we capture more sales, and we aim to be a mass product. And then we collect the monthly recurring fees on each device. In both segments, we believe that there are a lot of opportunities to continue growing. For example, the global asset tracking market is very vast and is very well established. However, with the introduction of low-cost IoT devices, it's a market that's going to keep growing, as essentially you can now start using devices to track pretty much everything and anything, especially at a lower cost assets, where before the cost of tracking them, it just didn't make sense financially. So now we actually are seeing a dramatic increase in tracking solutions for assets worth less than $1,000, like pallets, for example, where before, well, you may as well just buy a new one instead of spending twice as much on tracking them. And that's why we like to say that BeWhere is a disruptor, and it's both replacing other much more expensive trackers, and we also offer business owners a way to track assets that prior to IoT, they wouldn't even consider tracking them, like portable toilets or plastic totes. On the other end, the global IoT sensor market is pretty much untapped, And today's research shows that it would grow from 5.28 billion in 2018 to 22.48 billion in 2023, more than double the growth of the asset tracking market. Here, BeWhere is essentially starting from scratch, as there were virtually no existing solution or at a huge cost. Our advantage is that once again, we come in with low-cost products that are very easy to use and install. Because it's a new market, it's also longer sales cycle and a much smaller part of our sales at the moment. Generally speaking, our customers for IoT sensors are mainly governments, such as the City of Toronto. Therefore, demand has slowed down during the pandemic as resources were redirected to COVID relief measures. However, we're starting to see an increase in demand coming out of the pandemic, and projects that got delayed are now back on the table. Our next two slides are just visuals on how our solution works. Very simply, we have the assets where the trackers are mounted. The trackers collect information from the sensor and the GPS module, which is transmitted through the IoT cellular networks through our cloud server. And then this information is displayed on the BeWhere user portal, or it's integrated via API into another software. BeWhere solutions are very easy to deploy and very easy to use. On our next slide, I'm actually going to let Mason introduce you to some of our use cases. This is a video that was built by AT&T, which is one of our distribution partners. Make sure that you have your sound on.
Hey, I'm Mason, and I'm here to talk to small business owners about how AT&T's Asset Tracker 1 can help them keep track of all their valuable assets. Let's talk to them. You ever had anything that's ever, gone missing on the job site?
Brian, come here. I'm sorry. This actually recently just happened this week. We had the excavator that we were supposed to bring over here, but Brian brought it to the old site. So the whole time, we don't even know where it is.
So how did that make you feel where everybody's blowing up your phone trying to figure out where this thing that you're supposed to be responsible for?
Feel dumb, made a mistake.
What would happen to you if you were the only person on this site and this generator went missing?
I could lose my job.
What if I told you that this is all you need to save yourself from embarrassment? Do you understand?
I understand.
Because this is what you need. You know what it is? Say it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Asset Tracker 1 from AT&T. I guess I'm the only one who's doing it again. Did you know this thing has a geofence? Scientists, they got together and it shoots up and it makes a fence around the entire area. And if anything leaves that geofence, you get an alert. It's like a shot caller for a dog, but except like the only way you gonna know that is if the dog leaves the fence.
I want to use it now.
You can't. You gotta buy one. Get tracked, bro. Little leaf blower head. Get tracked. I don't know what it is, but it looks like it costs more than what I got. Get tracked, because if not, it's gonna get snatched. Remove all the guesswork of managing your assets with AT&T's Asset Tracker 1. We love you so much. Thank you, AT&T.
Thanks for.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mason. So with this video, Mason showed you what could be tracked in the construction industry using one of our asset tracking device, which is called the BESOL. The BESOL is a self-powered solar rechargeable asset tracker and probably our best seller. You can also see that the form factor is very small, yet it's a pretty rugged device. If you head to our YouTube channel, you can check more videos from our partners and some real-life use cases. So what other assets do we track? On this slide, we have various use cases, which for some are core selling markets to some of our distributors. Like TENA focuses on construction and tracking yellow iron. And TENA actually is worth mentioning, recently purchased another 6,500 units on top of the previous 12,000 asset trackers they already had. Geotab and Fleet Complete focus on fleet, like trailers, and government focus on smart cities with the IoT connected sensors. I wanted to emphasize that as an early player, we have secured some impressive partnerships with massive companies like Bell, AT&T, and T-Mobile, who actually need companies like BeWhere to grow their subscriber base. Let me explain why. Until the arrival of IoT, the cellular market was essentially saturated. I mean, there's only so many cell phones that you can buy. Now with IoT, each little tracker has a SIM card and a data plan. And because they are so cheap, they can sell tens of thousands of subscriptions to their customers. For example, a trailer company with 1,000 trailers will pay 1,000 subscriptions, but they will also start tracking new things. And that's potentially bringing another 1,000 subscriptions. And we're still at the early stage of IoT. Now let's talk about what BeWhere does. What we do is solving problems for customers by giving them data on their assets. And data that was either too expensive to get prior to IoT or that was just not available as there was no technology. This data allows business owners to save time and money managing their equipment. For example, we have a very large company that uses our BSOL to track the trailer either in the yard or on the road. But then we do two things. We help the driver locate the trailer much faster, which allows them to spend more time getting paid on the road versus looking for an hour for the trailer. And for the company owner, we help them keep an eye on the $50,000 asset, the trailer plus cargo, and if the delivery is going as it should. When talking about our connected sensors, here we bring completely new intelligence to service operators. For example, we work with the City of Toronto on two fronts. First, we help the city start a tree watering program with our soil moisture sensor, where they can now monitor real-time if the young trees planted around the city are in ideal conditions, which obviously saves a fair bit of money on the maintenance, i.e. the cost of water and the cost of sending employees. Watering is crucial during the first few years of a young tree, and it's not cheap to plant trees for the city. Our second initiative with Toronto is with the urban water supply, where we monitor water pressure within the city water pipes. Same thing here. We can remotely check if the water is circulating fine, and if there is a blockage or a leakage, an alert goes immediately to the city so they can dispatch maintenance instead of what has happened in the past, where a pipe burst in the middle of downtown in Toronto. It flooded the subway, and it cost millions to taxpayers to fix, like you and I. Lastly, I wanted to illustrate that our devices are truly versatile with this slide. These pictures were taken by one of our installers in Pennsylvania when he went to vote during the U.S. elections on November 3rd. He literally could not believe his eyes when he saw our B10 device, which is a battery-powered asset tracker, mounted on what I think is called a pole box. This is also to say that because of our model, we don't always know where our devices end up. In this case, it seems that it's being used to track pole collection machines, make sure that the fill poles didn't disappear. Now let's talk about our financials. So BeWhere went public in February 2016 with pretty much zero revenues to about $6 million for 2019 and over $5 million for 9 months ending September 2020. I'm not able to comment on the final number for 2020 as we're currently doing our audit. We keep growing our quarterly revenues and especially our most important performance indicator, which is our recurring revenues. We typically report our revenue broken down in 3 recurring hardware and services, which is usually one-off projects. When looking at our revenues, keep in mind that hardware sale does not reflect immediately in an increase in recurring fees, as sometimes it can take a few months or a few weeks for the client to deploy the units. Recurring revenues are now over $800,000 per quarter, and we are expected to continue growing. On our next slide, we're very happy to show our first positive earnings as of last quarter, after we started the year with positive adjusted EBITDA. This feels like a true achievement, especially during such a difficult time around the world. It does show that companies like BeWhere, which offer remote solutions, are benefiting in some way from the pandemic. In our case, we actually have seen both positive and negative effects from COVID, while the positive has much greater impact on our business. For example, our projects with smart cities were delayed. However, they're not canceled, and today they're back in discussion. The private sector, on the other end, could not seem to keep up with demand, and we have seen a record amount of orders coming in the last few months, with much shorter sales cycles. Again, this is simply explained by the fact that remote tracking technology and software solutions are essential in the world, especially when the entire population has to work from home. lastly, let's talk about the future. Our strategy is obviously to continue growing our existing sales segments by adding new customers. But we also need to remain relevant and ahead of the herd. One of our assets is the ability to meet demand quickly when an opportunity arises. For example, with COVID, certain opportunities have arisen in new markets such as cold chain tracking like vaccines and such. We're able to create variants of our devices to accommodate these emerging opportunities quickly and at a low cost. And thanks to our experience as a very early player in the mobile IoT world, we're also able to move to the next generation of devices, which are smaller and packed with more technologies than our current products. We expect to release a new version within this quarter, first with our existing preferred clients and then to additional markets such as the consumer market. For example, we have already secured a partnership with a large pet product manufacturer. And finally, we continue to work towards increasing our margins and, of course, our profitability. Let's wrap up this presentation with a quick review of our capital structure and main takeaways. Our shares increased a bit since I made the presentation. I think we're around 30.5 cents. So market cap about 26 mil and a comfortable cash position of 2.6 mil and a working cap of 3.7 million. What I want to leave my audience with are the main points that make BeWhere an attractive company to invest in, such as the fact that, yes, we've achieved profitability for the first time during the world pandemic, that we are an early player and we have secured partnerships with market leaders like the telcos, that the IoT market is growing at an exponential rate and that the tracking technology is becoming a commodity, that we both work on untapped markets like the connected sensors and we replace all technologies. And also, we are a very flexible company and we keep innovating. And finally, that our key performance metric continue to grow, our recurring revenue. And we have a clean balance sheet with zero debts, and to close the loop, that we have no positive earnings. This is the end of my presentation. That was a bit quicker than I thought, so let's take some questions now. I have a question from Harry Goyle. First question is, where the BeWhere sensors used in the recent U.S. election to track ballot boxes? Yes, Harry, we just talked about that in the slide. I'm not able to disclose who the customer is. Question 2, are the BeWhere sensors being used in vaccine logistics in U.S. or in Canada? Not at the moment, but we do have some inquiry that we're working on. And third question is, when will the BE-Mini be commercialized? We have currently samples, and we should be able to commercialize it at the end of the quarter. I have another question by still Harry Goyle. Can you tell us how much recurring BeWhere gets per device? It goes from $1 to $3 US per month per device. A question from Mandeep, what are margins on hardware? And what is our retention with customer? Our margin on ours is actually fairly small. We focus more on the margins on the recurring revenue, which is pretty much 90% profit, versus more minimal margins on hardware, where the idea is just to sell them the hardware and collect the revenues. The retention of our customers right now is probably around 100%. I haven't seen a churn yet. Another question by Christopher Hughes. What are some of your competitors for asset tracking and how do their prices compare to yours? This is a great question. In the IoT industry, we don't have a lot of competition. There are a number of much larger competitors that are using the traditional 3G or 4G networks. Typically, the prices are, I would say, at least double than our prices. And so far, we've managed to snatch quite a few customers from them. And then another question here. Do you expect profitability to continue or increase? Yes, we do. Do you use licensed spectrum? Yes, we use IoT networks that are owned by the carriers, such as AT&T, T-Mobile, or Bell. Question from Jay Ray: How can we get the story of BeWhere out to investor? Wow, hopefully that's what we're doing now. I would highly recommend everybody to follow BeWhere on our LinkedIn profile as well as our Facebook. We do like to share some use cases and customer stories more than with press releases. So go ahead and join BeWhere, follow BeWhere on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. You know, you have a number of stories there you can look at. Some questions about the future. Where do you see BeWhere in 5 years? Financial over the next 2 to 3 years. We don't give guidelines as of today. Obviously, we're working really hard to increase, the number of sales, the recurring revenues. For us, it's putting out new products and increasing those margin on those products. As of today, I can't give you guidance on the next 3 to 5 years. Oh God, sorry, I got a number of questions coming in. What is the biggest risk facing BeWhere? As any young company, you have to establish your roots and make sure that you keep growing your customer base. I think the biggest risk is not growing as fast as we want to. Now, we don't see a lot of competition right now in the industry that we are, we're working within. We have one big advantage is that we are a very early player. I'm just going to tell you a little story here. I'm taking a break from the questions for 2 seconds. The IoT networks, the LTE-M and NB-IoT networks, were originally they were developed, they were taught by the carriers, and then they were put in place. I think they started to be unrolled in 2017. At that stage, there was actually no products that could work on those networks. And the little story about BeWhere and AT&T is that the team was in Los Angeles, and they walked up to the AT&T booth, and they asked the AT&T guys if by any chance they had an IoT SIM card that they could try into the BeWhere device. And, the AT&T sales guys just gave us a SIM card, and we stuck it into one of our asset tracker, and boom, it worked. And it was the first time that they had a device, that was just working on their network. So, I want to make sure that you guys understand that we are a very early player, and that's why we have such amazing partnerships that are working with us. And that's kind of hard to displace as well, because the cost, the price that we sell our products to are very low too. They're hard to match. Are there additional products beyond the B-Mini being introduced in the market? Not right now that we can disclose. We have a number of initiatives that we're working on, especially with our smart city sensors. For example, we're also working, right now we're doing water pressure. We're adding some water flow as well to some of our government projects. And, we develop products as we see opportunities coming out. One question from Claude here. What are your expectations with the new products that you're launching in Q1 2021 regarding sales? I can't quantify anything as of now. However, we are already in discussion with a partner for the retail consumer markets, and we're working on our analysis. We're also going to offer it to existing industrial clients. So while I can't give you guidelines, we have a lot of positivity on this new product. Okay, that's the end of my questions. And that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if I have any moderator on the line with me or not. I guess not. Oh, yeah. Hello?
And that concludes this webcast. Thank you.